Hey, Game Slugger. What's going on, buddy? Alright, so I'm going to get set up here, and I'll explain what I'm doing. So my goal tonight is I want to make a gift for a friend who has helped me out quite a bit and who's been very generous. Hey, Dad Perfect, how's it going? So I want to make a gift for a friend who's been very generous in helping me with a lot of things here at my house ever since we bought the house and moved in. He is very good at doing drywall and other like handyman stuff, and he's been super helpful to me, and I know he's expressed an interest in some of the things that I've made, and so I want to make one of those things or a couple of those things for him, and just to show my appreciation to him. I'm hoping to have it done before Christmas, but that may or may not happen. But at the very least, I'd like to have it done before I see him next. So what I want to make tonight is at least one cutting board and a set of coasters for him out of this pile of scrap wood that I have here. And I've also been asked by the boss of Dillons Woodworks, my wife, Stacy, to make a couple set of coasters for the shop so we can put those out on the shelf to sell for gifts and that sort of thing, because they apparently have been pretty popular over there. So I'm going to try to work on making some of those, as well as a cutting board and some coasters like I was saying. So I got a bunch of these scrap pieces of wood here, and I'm probably going to start off, I'm going to try to make the cutting board first. I have some maple, cherry, and walnut that I am going to use to make the cutting board first. I want to get that done because that's kind of the primary thing that I know my friend was really looking forward to. At some point he basically said, you know, at some point I would love to get a cutting board from you. I want to have a kitchen that I could have a lot more room to work in and make more stuff, cooking and that sort of thing. So I'd like to kind of give that to him now. So it's something he has now, and I'm sure he could use it regardless of the size of his kitchen. So I think he's being kind of modest. So I want to help him out with doing that. And so I'm going to get started making that, and I'll kind of show you what I'm doing. But at the same time, I wanted to share live kind of what I'm making and give everyone a chance to jump in here and chat. It's Friday night, so I figured people might be wanting to hang out a little bit before the holidays. So I figured people want to jump in, hang out, and chat with me while I'm working on this stuff, then that would be really cool. So I'm going to get some of this wood prepared, and I'll kind of tell you what I'm doing. So for a cutting board, I would like to have something at least an inch thick, and I'd like to make a cutting board that is somewhat decent size for him. So I have a piece of walnut here that is 15 inches long. is just a hair over an inch thick. So I'm going to find some stock that will match up to that for some cherry and maple. This piece of cherry is close. I have this chunk of cherry. Hey Hamza, how's it going? Hi from Tunisia. I'm trying to pronounce that right. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. So where's Tunisia? So I got some cherry here. I'm going to cut a piece of cherry out to match up the thickness of this walnut. So I'll use this. And then I'm going to need some maple. And I got a big chunk of maple here. So I'm going to cut a piece of this. And this is ambrosia maple, slightly spalted. Some really nice color in it, so I'm going to cut out a piece of this, and I'm going to use this wood here to make a little cutting board, or not a little cutting board, but the biggest cutting board I can make out of these few pieces of wood here. So I got about 15 inches long, and I think I'd like to make it at least a foot wide. So I figure I'll probably get about 7 inches out of this piece of walnut. So that leaves me 5 inches. So if I can get at least a couple inches out of this cherry and a couple inches out of this maple to integrate with that walnut, I think we'll make a nice cutting board. So I think what I want to do, trying to figure out the best color. So I think walnut on the outsides, maple just inside of that, and then a strip of cherry down the middle. I think would look kind of cool. Hey Raymond, how's it going? Hamza says it's North Africa. That's awesome. So it must be pretty, I'm guessing it's probably pretty late there, or maybe pretty early there in the morning. It's almost 10 p.m. here Eastern time, so I'm gonna guess it's probably about 5 or 6 hours ahead of us where you're at, depending on where you are. 3:52. Okay, yep. So it's about 6 hours ahead of us. Nice. Hey Kenny, how's it going, man? This is great. I'm glad to have you guys here. So I'm gonna work on making this cutting board up for my friend, and you know, hopefully we can all chat together throughout this project. So how are you all guys doing, like during the holidays and stuff? And any projects you guys are working on? You guys are all into woodworking, or welcome to the channel, of course. I really appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with us. Raymond says he was sick for 2 days ago, but the last 2 days is doing great. Good. Hey, I'm glad to hear you're recovered from being sick. It's never fun being sick. I was just pretty sick a couple weeks ago for about 5 days. I couldn't even talk. So that's never fun. So it's good to hear you're doing well now. You do it. How's it going? Good to see you here. That's awesome. Great to have everyone here. Hamza Bushcraft. That sounds interesting. I'm going to actually pull up your channel in another tab here, and I'm going to check your channel out later. That sounds interesting. I always like bushcrafting stuff. So I'm going to get to work on the cutting boards here. And so you guys, it's always great to have new people on the channel and people who are always coming back. And it'd be awesome watching you guys chat together, get to know each other, get to know what you guys are all interested in and hobbies that you guys are up to. So I'm going to cut a few things. You do it says, doing good, brother. Thanks. Good to hear, man. Always good to hear during the holidays, especially. So I'm gonna cut up some of this stuff. Like I said, I get this walnut's a little over an inch thick. I get some cherry and maple. I'm gonna try to get that stuff cut down to a similar thickness so I can make a cutting board out of this stuff. And then we're gonna start with that. Once I get this cutting board done, I'm hoping to make at least a few set of coasters. Just with kind of some of the mixed wood here that I have some scraps to make some of that with. So I got some walnut, cherry, maple. I got some oak, which I won't put into the cutting boards, but I'll use that in some of the coasters. So if you guys have any questions along the way, feel free to ask. I'll be here working on this project. Definitely, I encourage you guys to talk amongst each other, which would be awesome. I am going to be running my saw here and there, so there will be some loud noise and times where I'm not going to be able to chat with you guys, but I will be checking in on the chat and answering any question you guys have, or just chit-chatting with you guys. So I appreciate you guys all being here and joining me for this project. So I'll talk to you in a bit. I'm going to get some of these things cut up, but definitely talk to each other, and I will be back in a few minutes. So this walnut, I'm probably going to do about 7 inches out of this. So I'm going to cut this down to 7 inches, and then I'm going to cut it directly down the center. I'm going to hook up the dust collection and get that fired up. So it's going to be a little noisy here. I'm going to start cutting a few things. You Do It says, I'm in South Jersey. Where are you all guys from? Well, I'm from New Hampshire, for anyone who doesn't know. Northeast United States. Cold and snowy. We actually got a lot of rain going on out there right now. Melting all the ice, causing a little bit of flooding, but it is what it is. Everyone has their own weather to deal with. How's your weather where you guys are all at? Actually, that's an interesting question, to where you guys are all from and what the weather's like where you're at. 70 degrees today. That would be nice. It's about 50 degrees here, and for us, that's warm right now. So, pardon me while I get some of these pieces of wood cut. You guys, if you guys don't mind chatting amongst each other, I'll be back in just a minute. I'll be right back. I got the maple and cherry cuts of thickness. This is all rough cut lumber from my sawmill, so it does have some cracking and stuff in it, so I'm trying to use as much of it as I can. This piece of cherry I think is going to work out good. This one is going to crack. As you can see it, about halfway through. So I'm going to probably only be able to use half of this piece. of this. This piece is going to be a little hard to work with, but has some really cool figuring to it and some cool color and characteristics in it, so I think this will look cool. But I want to make sure I had some all solid wood to work with when it comes to making the cutting board. So I think I'll try to get a piece of maple in there, maybe about 2 inches a piece of maple in the middle. I think what I'll do is I'll have maple or walnut, maple, cherry, and walnut. I think I'll put this aside for coasters. I got this maple, decent chunk of maple here from I pulled out of the kiln. 1 3/4 inches thick. I'm going to cut the live edge off of it first. Which I think I'll rip it down the middle first. So what I'm doing here is I want to get a good straight cut down the middle of this rough cut piece of maple. It's got live edge on both sides. So what I did was I brad nailed a straight board that has a straight side to it for reference. I can hold this up against the table saw, so when I cut down the middle, I'll get a nice straight. So that's what I'm going to do here. has the brad nails in it. Pull the brad nails out. Now I can still use this for coasters. So now I have a piece of maple with some nice straight edges on it. And I need to cut a chunk of this an inch thick to put in the cutting board to match up the thickness of the other piece. So I'm going to cut it just above an inch thick. And I'll plane it down to the thickness after. Alright, we still got 5 watching. Sorry I didn't scare too many of you away. Oh. The live stream die, or is my laptop the problem? Try to refresh the screen on my laptop. Oh, there we go. Alright. Must have been my laptop. So I'm watching the chat down here on my laptop, and it looked like it was frozen for a minute. Alright, so I'm going to catch up on the chat here for a minute. Let's see. Oh, Raymond had to go. Merry Christmas. Hey, Steve Carmichael. I don't know if you're still there, but welcome, man. I'm glad to have you here. Yeah, watching your videos as well. Learned a lot. Steve, forward to seeing everyone. Is a gift for a friend. A really good friend who's helped me out a lot and don't repay for the things he's done to help me out. So he's actually buying a cutting board from our store, from our shop, where we have all the woodworking products and things that people make. And he's actually buying a cutting board that I've made with some wood wax for a gift for another person that he knows. And he actually expressed to me tonight that, you know, at some point he wants to get a cutting board for himself. So when he has a bigger kitchen to cook in, he'll have a really nice cutting board to work with. So I don't think he should have to wait until he has a bigger kitchen to cook in and all that. And I think he should have a nice cutting board to cut on now. So I may or may not get this done before Christmas. I'm hoping to get it done tonight. Give that to him. So when he comes up to pick up the cutting board for his friend, I hopefully will have this ready and be able to give this to him when he comes to get that. So my plan is to make this cutting board with a couple pieces of walnut, and then in the middle of that, cherry and ambrosia maple. So I got the pieces cut to similar thicknesses, and so now I just have to get them, a couple of those two, the cherry and the maple, trimmed down just a little bit to similar length, and make sure that they're nice and jointed so they'll glue up good together. Clamp them together, glue them, and then I'll be able to trim them down, plane them, and shape this into a really nice cutting board for him. So it's about 15 inches long and about 11 inches wide. So it'll be a decent sized cutting board for him to work with in his kitchen. So I'm gonna trim down that piece of cherry and maple in the middle so they're matching up a little bit closer to the length of these walnut boards. So it's a little bit easier to manage, and then I'll make sure they fit nice together and glue them up and clamp them, and I'll be able to work with them tomorrow once they're dry. First thing, I'm going to cut the cherry and maple down to length a little bit. Plugged in. Let's see if I need to straighten these up at all. So I'm going to run the edges of these through the table saw one more time, just to kind of use the table saw to joint them a little bit to give them as straight as edge as possible, so they can get the best glue up that I can get. And then we'll glue these up and set these aside and start working on the coasters. much better fit. So now that I've cut each of these on the table saw so they have a nice flat edge, they fit together really well. So I'm just going to glue these together, and then tomorrow I'll cut this into a cutting board. Just grab a scrap piece of plywood here to put over my table saw to glue up on. So I'll try to catch up on the chat again here. So yes, I'm right now I'm currently making a cutting board. See, a couple people asked. Hey, debt-free homesteaders, hello from Utah. How's it going, man? Hey, Jeffrey Byer, how's it going? Hope you're doing all right. Practical Metal, hello from Central Alabama. Came over from Fall Line Research Channel. That's awesome. Yeah, he's a really cool guy. I've been following him since he just started out, and he's come quite a long way. At one point, he was trying to work up to build his channel up and zoomed right past my channel and has been doing great. His video editing is awesome. He does a really great job. Me and him actually were working on building our solar kilns right about the same time. Really awesome guy. You say you're Central Alabama. So actually the company I work for is actually in Birmingham. So I'm sure you're probably pretty close to that. I was actually just down there about 2 weeks ago. And I'll probably be down there again, I'm sure, in the next few months. So maybe sometime we'll meet up. Jeffrey Byer says the different colors will make that a really nice cutting board. That's what I like about, you know, using different types of woods and gluing it all up in a cutting board, is it looks really cool. So I've made probably, I don't know, a dozen of these or so now, and I haven't even made one for myself, which I need to do at some point. Let's see. You Do It says just had to refresh as well. So is the live stream okay? Is it been dying out? The audio and video look all right? Sorry about that if it's been disconnecting and stuff. I guess I haven't really been paying attention much to that, but I wanted to come out here and work on a few things. I was over at we have a store next town over where we sell stuff that I make and stuff that a lot of other local makers make, and we have consignment with them, a really good deal on consignment for them, so to encourage people to bring their stuff over and sell it as well. And so we were hanging out over there for 4 or 5 hours today, having a good time, all 5 of us actually. So I just wanted to come back here and kind of was inspired after hanging out there today. Wanted to make some stuff here in the shop, but hopefully it looks good. Jeffrey Byer says, bye Mike, I sent you a private message. All right, Jeffrey, I'll definitely check it out when I'm done here. I'm sure we'll chat later. Grizz, how's it going, man? How's the kitty stew? Any children in the chat? There's no children in the chat. It's about 10:30 p.m. here. So they're all hanging out in bed. Emma is going to sleep, or probably should be asleep by now. She's got her piano lessons tomorrow. And she is Grizz, like you say, she is a sponge. It's amazing just a few piano lessons, the things she's learned. I it's gonna be mind blowing when she starts playing. We actually have a little surprise for her for Christmas. Um, so she'll have something to play on after Christmas. So once we get that, I want to share with you guys the things she's learned. It's amazing. She's actually got her own channel now on YouTube and to prepare to kind of she wants to record and play her music online. 7 years old. It's like mind blowing how smart she is. I I can't even. It's crazy. Grizz says, if any of you see Santa before I do, give this to. Oh Jesus Christ! You do it. Says, yeah, me. I'm 12, going on 50. I hear you, brother. Yep, I'm 12, going on 42. Getting started on homesteading says, hey y'all, how's it going? Getting started? Great to have you here. So I'm just putting together a cutting board for a really good friend. I don't know if he really watches my videos much, which is fine. So that'll be good because it'll be a surprise to him. Not just sawdust. How's it going? Can't hear much, but that's just because of the loud music here. I hope so, because yeah, I'm standing right in front of. I'm actually just using my cell phone as a camera, and I'm looking down here at my laptop to watch the chat because it's a lot easier than looking on my phone to watch that. Grizz says, Mike, I remove it. So, caught up on the chat a bit. If you guys want to still hang out and chat with each other, I'm going to get this glued up. I actually have to go out in my garage and grab a couple of clamps that will work good for this. And so I'll be back in just a minute. do with these things. That one's not going to work. Find some clamps here that'll work. One. Two. This will work. Three, one more. There we go. Alright, got the clamps I need. And I'll use Tape Bond 3 for these cutting boards since they're waterproof. So the walnut, if you're wondering, I actually get it from a sawmill down in Virginia because we don't really have any walnut around here. We do have some, but very, very little. I never get a chance to get my hands on it for milling. So I actually order it from a sawmill that I kind of got to know from Instagram, Black Forest Sawmill down in Virginia. At some point, we talked about doing a road trip and meeting up halfway to kind of do a meetup, hopefully this coming year. And he was talking about maybe bringing up a trailer full of walnut, and I could buy some from him kind of at a discount. So hopefully I'll be able to do that, and I'll have a lot more walnut to work with. That fits together really nice. One more plant. Alright, so we'll tighten these all up. Little rag, wipe off the squeeze out. Alright, good to go. I'll put this aside, let it dry till tomorrow, and we'll have a maple cherry walnut cutting board. Put this aside. Alright, project number 1. Halfway done. All right. See if I can get it caught up on the chat again here. Getting Started in Homestead says, I hope you all didn't see me live. I didn't mean to go live. Been there, done that. Sometimes you hit that button by accident, right? Chris says, I was going to have an outdoor fire this evening, but was too lazy. At some point, I want to do that during the winter, because our yard is covered in snow and ice, so no better time than now to actually have a fire over the next few months when everything's covered in snow and ice. Grizz says, I remember when the only choice of wood glue was Elmer's. Yep. Yeah, I don't know when Type Bond and all these other brands kind of came out, but yeah, Elmer's was kind of always the go-to glue. Just saw that. Says, hi at Steve Carmichael. All fine here. Having a party, making some CCR music. Nice. At 3:30 in the morning and well, watching YouTube. Nice. 3:30 in the morning. Grizz says, that walnut will be awesome if you can get your hands on it. Yeah, I'm hoping I can. I'm hoping to meet up with Sean Black. He's on Facebook as well. I don't think he has a YouTube channel, but he's on Facebook and Instagram. Black Forest Sawmill in Virginia. So definitely go check them out. They do awesome stuff. They always featuring everybody that makes the stuff out of their wood, and they have a really good deal. If you're looking to buy walnut and have it shipped to you, you can get it shipped to you for if I remember right, it's like $7-8 a board foot for walnut, which I'm happy with because we don't get a lot of that around here. Kenny says, nice, looks good. Hey, thanks. Yeah, I'm not a pro at this, but I'm having a lot of fun making these cutting boards, and I love to find unique color and figure in woods and try to put some stuff together. And definitely having a good time with it. B&B Forge, you do some forging. Good evening, how's it going? Thanks for joining. I'm gonna bookmark your channel as well and check that out. So I'd love to get into doing some blacksmithing at some point. My son actually expressed some interest in doing some blacksmithing, so definitely want to get into that. B&B Forge, what are we working on? So I don't know if you saw, but if not, I'll definitely be happy to pull it back out. But making a cutting board for a good friend of mine as a surprise, hopefully for Christmas. Going to try to get that done this weekend, put some nice finishing touches on it, and give that to him for a Christmas present, because he told me that he would love to have a nice cutting board like that. So I'm working on putting that together for him. And I also want to, I'm actually, the next thing I'm going to work on now is making some sets of coasters, which is kind of similar style of what I'm doing with the cutting board. Is just taking different types of woods and joining them together and ripping them down to size and making some nice square coasters. I might even make some round coasters actually out of some of those on the bandsaw and cut some circles out. So one of the things I did want to talk about actually tonight, which is going to be a surprise for anyone who's not here on the live chat, which is kind of cool because there's only 6 people here, so it's going to probably be something else unless people watch this entire live stream. But I've got a few new tools up my sleeve, a few new pieces of equipment that I ordered and now have here at the homestead and the sawmill that are definitely going to be some major game changers. One, I sold, for anyone who knows, that I had a pretty large JCB backhoe loader that I've had for the last year or so. I also had a JCB skid steer, which is a smaller skid steer. And both those machines work great. After using both of them for about a year, I learned quite a bit about kind of the needs that I have around here. I bought them both used, so it kind of helped me get an idea of kind of how those machines will work and what the ideal machine for me would be. So I sold the backhoe for about what I paid for it, and I started looking at a new skid steer, because the skid steer has been the most amazing tool. Of course, for anyone who's run a skid steer, they're pretty nimble. You can turn on a dime, and you can get into tight places, and so they're really, really handy. And so I found myself using the skid steer quite a bit more than I was using the backhoe, and so I wanted to look into getting a bigger. The nice thing about the backhoe is it was bigger, so I was able to pick up heavier things, but it was kind of clunky. It was like a beer in a china shop. It was large, but it was always in its own way. So I wanted to get a combination of both, something hefty that was capable of doing a lot of work, but that was nimble enough to get in some tight places and be able to work in tighter spots. So I started researching skid steers that were on the bigger side, and I started looking at used machines and new machines, and then I decided to finance a new machine. So I decided to buy a Bobcat T650, which is 80 horsepower diesel Bobcat, full enclosed cab, heat. It has computer controls in it, and it's like the most amazing machine I've ever had. I traded my JCB skid steer in for that. I took the money that I got from selling the backhoe, I put that down on it, and I now have that machine. So I'm gonna do a video on that skid steer, because that thing is an amazing machine, and I think it would be handy for other people to see kind of what it can do and how it could possibly benefit people who are trying to do the same type of thing I am. One of the things that is a challenge with the machine, because it's a track skid steer with rubber tracks. The big difference between that and the other machines that I had with tires is I could put tire chains on the other machines and I could go anywhere I wanted to on ice. But when it came to mud and snow, it pretty much just dug itself a hole and wouldn't go anywhere. Nice thing about the tracks is the tracks will float over snow and mud, no problem. But when they get on ice, all they do is just slide around. So I found a company that actually sells studs that you can put in the track to give you better grip on ice. I put those in, and that thing is like a tank. It will go absolutely anywhere. So at some point I'm going to do a video on that and show you guys all about that machine. And that thing is like the most amazing tool that I have ever purchased. And I'm sure that thing's going to be with me for a lifetime. That thing is amazing. A couple other things. I ordered an extension for my Woodland Mills Sawmill. So now I'm able to mill logs almost 17 feet long. I also ordered a trailer for the sawmill that Woodland makes specifically for this sawmill, which is not here yet, but it's in transit. So that will be arriving probably next week at some point. I also have a new, and what I'm basically doing is I'm taking anything that I'm making from selling the slabs and the wood around here, and I'm reinvesting it. And so, and I am financing some of these things. So, but I also look at it as an investment into what I'm trying to do. So I also purchased a CNC machine. I won't really tell you a whole lot about that, but I will be doing a very thorough video on that. I haven't even built it yet. It's actually sitting in the garage, brand new in the box. So I'm hoping to put that together in the next couple weeks. So there's so many more things going on that I'm going to be sharing in some future videos. So if you guys are into all that stuff, definitely stay tuned. I'm probably not even going to be able to keep up with the things I'm doing with the videos. So I'm gonna try to record and document everything I'm doing and get those videos edited and uploaded so you guys can see what I'm doing. But at the very least, I'm going to try to live stream some of these things. So anyway, just wanted to throw that stuff out there so you guys kind of knew what was going on. I've been spending a lot of time, myself and Stacy and the whole family, on putting together the business that we've been putting together for the store and stuff, and that's been going pretty well. We've been really happy with that and having a lot of fun with it. So yeah, those are some of the things. I'm kind of rambling on, but just wanted to share some of those things that I am working on, which is probably more than I can handle, but but it's a lot of fun. So I'm gonna get caught up on the chat here. Let's see. B&B Forge says, "Cool, yeah, I did woodworking when I was a teen with my grandpa. I still love it, but the forging bug got me." Yeah, my oldest son Ryan is talking about wanting to do forging. He's been watching some people online building their own forges and making stuff out of steel, and he seemed to express an interest in it. So I gotta kind of get into that so I can help him learn that stuff. Awesome Wood Things. Hey Matt, how's it going? Great to have you. This is great. Yeah, I was just talking about getting a CNC machine. I know you don't know a lot about that, so. Hopefully maybe they'll have some pointers for me once I start getting those videos out and setting that up. But I'm really looking forward to that. Patrick's Workshop, how's it going, man? I know Patrick knows the machine that I'm getting, or I already have. It's sitting here in the box. I just haven't had a chance to open it up and put it together yet. But I will be doing that hopefully in the next week or two. Getting started with Homestead. Look into old school with a modern twist. He does old school forging. Oh, I'm going to have to check that out. See, Grizz said, would love to have a skid steer, but for me, I need the tiller as well as, and the tiller and the other accessories Yeah, that is the nice thing about the tractor, having the PTO and having the ability to have those accessories. Um, that's one of the things I do miss about having a tractor. I had a tractor years ago. Steve Carmichael says, "Hey, Patrick and Matt, it's great to have all you guys here. This is awesome. This is a lot of fun. That's why I put these live streams up when I'm working out here in the shop. When I'm working on stuff, it's a lot more fun to have people to chat with." Grizz says, "Hey, if you're too busy, just point and shoot and upload. We'll understand." Hey, man, that's what I'm doing now. That's why I've been doing a lot more live streams than I've been doing uploading videos. I hope you guys liked. I just put a video out last night. I know some of you guys have watched it, but I just put a video out last night. That was actually from, I think, October when we unloaded the kiln at that point. I've actually unloaded the kiln one more time since then, but I finally got around to editing that video, and it was actually a lot of fun to edit because it was fun to kind of go back and relive that and watch it again. Matt, awesome wood thing says, "All good here, brother. What brand of CNC?" I got a carbide Shea Poco double XL CNC. So I have that in the garage right now, brand new in the box. I haven't even opened it. I'm really looking forward to getting that put together. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Not Just Sada says, "Well, sorry guys, gotta go. Almost 4 a.m. and there's a project to be finished later on. A few hours until sunset. All the best from Portugal." Not Just Sawdust, thanks for coming and hanging out, and sounds like you've had a long night. Take care, get some rest, and we will hopefully talk to you next time. Awesome Wood Thing says, "Steve, my super secret project that you know about is getting better and better." Hey, I'm interested in learning about your secret super project. I'll be looking for that. Getting started in Homestead, it says, "Have to go. Good night, all." Hey, good night. Getting started. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I actually am in the same group with Patrick now on Facebook. The was it Shea Poco something group. But I've been trying to learn as much as I can about the CNC. I do IT work for a living, so I do computer work for a living. So I think it'll be kind of a nice mix between my joy doing woodworking and my knowledge of computers. So hopefully that'll be a good fit for me. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I know my son's going to love it because he loves all the technical stuff. So I'm sure we'll have fun together doing projects. Steve says, "You'll have fun with the CNC. I think you have to enjoy the design part of it, since sending it to the machine is just the last step." Exactly. And I actually really enjoy working with SketchUp. I've actually done a lot more SketchUp designs than I've actually made. It sounds silly, but I actually really like working with SketchUp, and I almost feel like I've built the whole thing by the time I'm done with it. Maybe that's why I don't actually go forward with finishing it, between that and not having the time. But by the time I invest the time in putting something together in SketchUp, I don't have the time to actually build it. But hopefully at some point all the things that I've kind of put together in my brain and put into SketchUp, maybe I'll be able to make. But hopefully the learning curve isn't too bad with Carbide. What is it? Carbide Create. I haven't even tried using that software yet, so that should be a lot of fun. Grit says, "I don't know anything about CNC. Is it limited to what size wood it can work on and depth it can carve?" There is definitely a limit onto all dimensions of the wood, based on the size of the machine, really. I forget the exact dimensions of the CNC I have, but there's definitely limits to it. And there's much bigger machines, much more powerful machines, much more accurate machines. But this one, based on the research I did, seemed like a really good machine to start with, and I think it'll kind of get me kind of a good ways into working with CNC. Awesome Wood Thing says, my freaking Z-axis is all wobbly, ruined what I was working on. I have a different brand. Oh. Curious what, I should know this, but what brand do you have? I know there's so many brands out there. X-Carve, okay. That's kind of what I was thinking. I know the Shapeoko and the X-Carve were kind of the two I was looking at because the price point was, you know, more than reasonable than a lot of the other more expensive brands. So I didn't want to break the bank with something, but I wanted to get into something that I can get started with, that you know, like it would be an investment and something I could, you know, take whatever I make from making those projects and reinvest it back into something more if I even find I need that. But I look at it as kind of another tool in the arsenal of things that I use to build the projects that I'm making. I'll be able to use it to do like cool designs in some of the projects that I'm doing, engraving and that sort of thing. So not always, I mean, I'm sure I will be doing things where it's just solely CNC, but I also think it'll be fun to incorporate some of the CNC stuff into the other projects that I'm doing. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Patrick says CNC is super fun. It does look like a lot of fun. I've been watching a lot more CNC videos lately. I'm kind of getting excited about it. Patrick says, I had an X-Carve, ended up selling it and getting a Shapeoko. I've seen a few guys do that, which is kind of what led me to get the Shapeoko. I don't know if you guys watch Ben Myers Woodshop, but I watched his video comparing the two, and it was pretty convincing. Also bought a Gatton. I've heard good things about his CNCs as well, but I just want to I'm starting out with this, and we'll see how it goes. Chris says, I thought about using SketchUp, but I see no need for it for me unless I was gonna sell the prints, but I have no desire to do that. Just build out of my head. Every time I try to build out of my head, I tend to make mistakes. I've had some projects that went really well, that I just built out of my head and then went really good, and others that were way off, and I pretty much put in the wood stove and started over. The red and gold Iron Man. Oh, my dog's barking to come in, so I'll be back in just a second. I'm going to go let him in. crazy New England weather. I keep opening the door thinking it's going to be really cold out. And I open the door and it's in the 50s outside. 11 o'clock at night, which is unusual for late December in New England. Because mid-November, Thanksgiving, I think, was about 5 degrees out. And now everything's melting, so. Awesome Wood Things. I know you got a lot of cool stuff coming, Patrick. That's why I got to step up my game. You're setting the bar higher, damn you. Patrick's Wood Shop. I want to hit 100K in 2019. Nice. I'm sure you'll do that. I want to see some of those videos, man. J-Dog, how's it going? So if you guys want to chat a bit with each other, I'm going to work on trying to put some of these coasters together. So I'm going to cut up some of these scraps here that I got and make some coasters so we can put them over in the shop. And I'm also going to have to make some more cutting boards for the shop as well, because we got a special going on at the shop where we're every cutting board that someone buys, we're giving them a can of wood wax, wood bomb finish for their cutting board to keep it maintained. So people are really kind of taken into that. So gonna make some of them. But one thing that we don't have any left of is coasters. So I'm gonna make some of them. Hey Mike, can you lower your can a little? Oh, my camera, I'm thinking. Let me see if I can do that. Hang on. Try to get a little creative. Oh, camera, yep. Try to get creative here with this setup. Just a second. Trying to use a clamp as a camera stand here. Let's see. Oh. Let's try this. I think this will work. Phone, yeah, phone. You know, it's funny. I had a phone tripod mount. Oh man. But it broke it. Actually, hang on just a sec. Sorry, guys. Yeah, that's not great. I have a... I'm trying to think. Oh, I know. Hang on a sec. Whoa. So this phone has a magnet on it. So if I put I broke my my phone camera mount. I haven't replaced it yet, which I obviously need to do. It worked really good right up until I broke it. There we go. How's that? Sorry about all the shaking around. I think that will help a lot. Nice. All right. Thanks. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that. Should have been prepared for that, but yeah, I basically put a clamp up here on my tool wall and just I have a magnet on the back of my phone. I actually took a magnet out of a hard drive and gorilla glued it to the back of my phone. I use that whenever I'm working on stuff outside and that sort of thing, and it gives me a way to just stick my phone to stuff so I can still, watch YouTube videos on how to do things while I'm doing them. Sam Adams. So I figured I'd stop and hang out at this point. Now we can see all the cool stuff in your shop. Yeah. There's a lot of crap. Speaking of my treadmill, which you can tell I use a lot, So, yeah, I was thinking about using some of this scrap to make some coasters. Got some piece of maple. Cherry, walnut, a piece of cherry, and so for the coasters, I usually make them quite a bit thinner than the cutting boards. Like a ½ inch or so. And try to do like a 4x4 for coasters. So if I do the same style and I do walnut on either side with cherry and maple, I can make a few sets of coasters out of these pieces. Point the camera up higher so we don't see the mess. Yeah. Yeah. So over here we have, let's see, right in front of the treadmill, you can see our air conditioners. So this is kind of a catch-all room for all of our crap. So I try to work out here as much as I can, but it ends up being a pretty cluttered space, which is why on the other side of where my phone is here is a 2-car garage. It's about 22 by 22, and I've actually completely gutted it out, and we'll be renovating that and remodeling it, putting all new drywall in there, insulation and heat and all that. I'll be turning that into my workshop, hopefully in the next few months. So hopefully by spring I'll have my workshop completely set up there in the garage and have hopefully more than twice the space that I have now, which will probably not be enough by the time I get everything set up. And I'll probably need a bigger space. I've always talked about wanting to build my own separate workshop outside of the house, which I'm sure maybe at some point I'll do. But, you know, it all comes down to having enough time to do that. I know a guy who made a bunch of overly complicated coasters last week. Steve Carmichael says, how do wood coasters hold up with condensation, puddling on them? I've never made any. I have not used any wood coasters personally myself. I don't actually usually use coasters anyways because I don't have nice enough furniture to really care about protecting it. But I figure if the wood's dry enough and it's stable enough and I put a good protection on it, what I've been pretty much just doing is putting a couple of coats of wipe-on satin poly on it. So I guess I'll hear about it if people have problems with them, but I've seen a lot of people make them and I haven't heard of anybody having any major issues. But just like anything, you know, as wood absorbs moisture, I'm sure it'll probably warp a little bit. MDF coasters would be cool. My wife wants me to use a coaster. I told her to glue it to the bottom of my beer can. I've seen wood with cork on them. That's a good idea. I know some guys who do that. I also know there's a guy locally who makes really big, thick coasters with those rubber feet on them that a lot of people put on cutting boards. Beaverwood Outdoors, how's it going? I'm in a quarantine area for ash borer beetle. I have 3 dead ash tree. Is it worth trying to saw them into lumber or is it firewood? Depends on how far gone they are. If they're standing dead and they've been standing dead for a while, they potentially could be rotted, but ash takes quite a bit of a while to rot out. But if the beetles have gotten into them and chewed them up, you don't really know until I guess you cut into them. But personally, if I had some standing ash trees that haven't been dead for too long, I would definitely take them down and mill them up and see what they look like. Grizz says, wood coasters, yeah, you got to keep them oiled up, but you never wash them. Yeah, I wouldn't submerge them or put them through the dishwasher or anything like that. I would just wipe them down, keep waxing and oiling them, and you know, if they go out of flat at all, you know, maybe just sand them flat again and put a new finish on them. So, yeah, I guess I'll cut up some of the strips of this wood here and glue them together to get ready to make some coasters with them. We got some pieces here for some coasters. They're pretty close in thickness. They're meeting up really nice and smooth. So that should make one set of coasters. Got walnut, cherry, maple, and walnut. And might even look even cooler if I put I don't know, you guys let me know what you guys think, but walnut, cherry, walnut maple, or walnut, cherry, maple, walnut. I don't know. Undecided there. I'm gonna use my phone to look at the chat. I think it'll be my other phone. Be easier to look at, I think. For some reason I have a hard time looking at the chat on the computer. There we go. Walnut, cherry, maple, walnut. That's what I was thinking. That's my original thought. So we got here walnut, cherry, maple, walnut. And of course these on the camera look similar, but will obviously look quite a bit different once it's glued up, sanded, and finished. So I will glue those up. Walnut, cherry, maple, and walnut. Bada bing, bada boom. Walnut, maple, cherry, walnut. And so for this, these are coasters. I'm going to use Type Bond 2, a little bit cheaper. And these coasters should not be totally submerged in water. So this water resistant glue should work. Although I do have Elmer's glue, I could pull that out if I have to. I don't remember what we used in wood shop in school, but we definitely used whatever they had. I'm sure they had a lot better tools than I have. And it's funny because we had wood shop in like, I think 6th grade. We were probably like 10, 12 years old, running woodworking machines. But nowadays they're too scared to give kids machines like that. I remember I built a bookcase. We made a piggy bank, I think in 6th grade, a bookcase in 7th grade. Some clamps. There we be, one set of coasters, all glued up. Pretty simple. Bada bing. See what I missed for a chat. Hey, Amber and John, how's it going? Grandpa Grizz. Steve Carmichael says, yeah, walnut, thin maple, cherry, thin maple, walnut. Hey, I'm doing that one next. Thank you, Steve. So walnut, thin maple, cherry, thin maple, and then walnut. I'm going to do that one now. Amber and John says, I like watching people work with wood. Well, you came to the right place. Grizz says, Mike, take it apart now and do it right. I'd rather do it left. That's just who I am. All right, so I'm going to go with Steve's suggestion. Walnut, thin maple, cherry, thin maple, walnut. So let's try that next. All right, I'll be back in just a minute, and then I'm gonna do that. So walnut on the outside. We got maple. I'll have to cut this a little bit thinner. Split that down the middle. And then I'll put cherry in between. And I get the perfect piece for that. So he said thin maple and then cherry. So this, if I split this, this will be thin maple. And then the cherry, this piece of cherry in the center of that. So if I combine those, and after I cut them down, I should end up with somewhere around 4 inches, which will be perfect. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this piece of maple, rip it down the middle, put it on either side of this piece of cherry with the walnut on the outside, and we will have walnut, thin maple, cherry, thin maple, walnut. I like that. I think that's going to look good. Alright, I'll be back in just a second. And then we'll get started on making those coasters. One thing I'd like to do at some point is make a box, kind of a similar design, using different styles of piece of wood. And I started doing that with this, but it didn't come out square, so I wasn't really happy with it. So this will be firewood, but I want to do kind of the same thing. This was kind of some scraps from the last set of coasters I made. So got maple, cherry in the center, thin walnut. All right. So I'm gonna need to get these cut a little straighter. And we'll go from there. So I think that's actually going to look really cool. So we got walnut, thin maple, cherry, thin maple, walnut. What do you guys think? And we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 coasters. I think that'll look pretty cool. Glue these up again. This is an ambrosia maple. It actually has a really nice color in it. So all this wood was milled, with the exception of the walnut, milled on my sawmill. Flip. Flip. There we go. That looks good. Make sure I don't run out of clamps here. Cool. I think that's going to be good enough. There we go. Walnut, thin maple, cherry, thin maple, walnut. I think those are going to look really cool. Check out the chat here again. See, Amber says, let's see, I'm trying to get caught up on this here. Steve says, cool, looks good. I don't take this channel live anymore. I do that on my other channel. That looks awesome. I like it. I think it's going to look pretty cool. Grizz said that looks sharp. I think it's going to look good. Awesome wood things. I couldn't see the blade because of the fence obscured it, but there was a lot of reaching behind the blade. That was a little scary. Yeah, so I was reaching over the blade to try to, keep the wood against the fence. But my hands were away from the blade, which is why I was using the push stick to keep my hands away from touching the blade. But it definitely, if there's anything I'm doing that you guys see that don't look right, definitely let me know. But so far, 10 fingers, 10 toes. But that doesn't mean anything. If I'm gonna do something that doesn't look right, I'm open to suggestions, of course. See, looks good, or you could do thin maple, walnut, cherry, walnut, thin maple. I think that would look cool too. And I might do that because I need to make probably 4 or 5 set of these, and if I'm lucky, I got 2 sets out of what I've done so far. So Awesome Wood Thing says cool. Steve Carmichael says I think he has a riving knife too. That helps. Yes. So here I'll give you a little bit closer look at the table saw. It's nothing fancy. It's a portable contractor saw that I mounted to a table. But I've been using these machinist squares to make sure everything is nice and square. So if there is a little bit of a discrepancy actually in this saw, but regardless, I still use these machinist squares to make sure that they're cutting true. So I'll raise the blade a bit here. So there is, I definitely did not remove the riving knife. It's still in the saw. I like having that there because it does keep the wood separated. You can definitely tell when you're cutting through the wood when there's stress in the wood and it's trying to pull into each other, or when it's trying to pull away from itself. So there's definitely that, and I'm definitely, cognizant of when that's going to happen and trying to be cautious, especially when it's trying to pull itself into the fence, because that's creating stress between the fence and the blade. And then of course there's pressure there, so the blade could be trying to push the wood back towards me, which is when I try to push down further with the push tool there. So I try to try to be cautious of what's happening with the table saw. So yeah, I try to keep my hands away from the blades by using the push tools as much as I can, and I'm aware of, I can feel the kickback, that sort of thing. I use circular saws and miter saws, table saws, chainsaws. So I'm always trying to be aware of the direction that the blade is spinning in and what direction the blade is trying to push the wood in, to kind of be careful of what the blade could potentially try to do with the wood. But even when you do all that, of course there's always a chance of an accident happening. But I'm definitely not a professional at this stuff, so I'm always open to suggestions or input if anyone has other ideas. But at this point, this is the tool I have, and at some point I would like to get a much nicer table saw. But this is a Bosch contractor saw, and it's actually been really good for me. It's been working really well so far. As long as I have a good sharp blade in there, it usually cuts really well. And as long as I have it good, plugged into a 20 amp or better circuit, it doesn't blow any circuits. Grizz says, "Don't worry about it, Mike. You're tougher than that table saw." Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but at least if I get cut by it, I'll wrap it up with something. I'll heal and I'll do it again. But that's just how I roll. You know that, Grizz. I learn from my mistakes, and I make enough of them. That's for sure. I try to avoid them when I can, but no matter how much I try to avoid them, I make a lot of them. Awesome Woodthing says, "I want to replace my table saw that I love, but it doesn't have a riving knife." Oh, yeah. See, I don't know if I'd feel comfortable not having a riving knife, because the nice thing about it, it does keep the wood from pressing against each other, so you don't get the wood trying to squeeze on the blade. Before I grab onto the blade much more, I'm going to unplug it. But so the saw is unplugged now. But yeah, so having this here definitely keeps the wood, so as it's going through the saw, because you always have, especially with rough cut wood, which I have, that's all I have, because all the wood that I'm working with here all came from my band sawmill. So it's all rough cut wood that came from logs that I milled. So there's a lot of stress in a lot of this wood. And so when you're going to, just about every piece of wood I cut, the wood's always trying to do something other than go straight. So when you're pushing into it, you can really feel and see when it's either trying to go in opposite directions, or if it's trying to go against itself. When it's trying to go against itself, that's more of a risk, because it's trying to grab the blade. And of course, when it's trying to grab the blade, that blade is going this direction, so it wants to throw the wood in that direction. And that's when you get your kickback. I've never had an accident with kickback, because I'm trying to always be aware of what the saw blade is doing, just like anything else. Like I said, the chainsaw or any other saw I'm using. So I'm always being aware of the pressure that the blade is putting on the wood and what it's trying to do with it. So that's kind of from on my own experience, the key thing is being aware of what that blade is trying to do with the wood. And having that riving knife there is nice, because it keeps the wood separated from itself. So if there is some stress in the wood and it's trying to squeeze on that blade, it's preventing that as much as it can from pulling and kicking back towards you. That's just kind of the experience I get from it anyway. But I'm no professional for sure. Steve says, "Me too, Matt. I'm considering a saw stop. I've heard a lot of good things about the saw stop, so they're not cheap, that's for sure." Patrick says, I don't have a riving knife on my old saws. You could do the upgrade, Steve. My saw, Awesome Wood Thing says, my saw has a overhead riving knife. It sucks. It doesn't work well. I need to replace the entire saw. Yeah, like I have two of these. I have two portable contractor saws. This one I have mounted permanently to this table, which is portable. It's got wheels on it, but it doesn't move unless I lift one end up of it and move it around. It doesn't go anywhere. But there is wheels on one side of it, so I lift one side of it and I can wheel it around. But it's worked so far so good. When I do get into my other shop in the garage, I'm probably going to pick up a nicer saw, something more powerful, a cabinet saw, something that's going to be more stationary. Grizz says, I find that more experienced carpenters tend to get injured more often with safety equipment than not. I've seen that. I've definitely seen that just from my experience of watching other people do things. Is people tend to get too comfortable with the tools that they've been using for decades, and they get so comfortable to the point where they start not respecting those tools for what the damage that they can actually cause, and so they become so comfortable using those tools that they forget that the damage that those tools can actually do, and they tend to get too, like I said, too comfortable to the point where they're not, I guess, not fearing the tool, but respecting what the tool can do, and always being cautious and careful of it, thinking that they know better than the tool does, and sometimes the tool bites back. From what I've seen, especially loggers who are out there, running chainsaws and machines that, they get caught up in something because they're not paying attention, and it gets pretty nasty. So I'm always aware of that. My father was in bridge and tunnel construction for 30 plus years, and even as a little kid, he used to come home and tell me stories that were pretty nasty, and I've never forgot any of them. That's probably why I'm always trying to be as cautious as I can with things like this, because I've heard some pretty nasty horror stories of people getting killed in some pretty nasty ways that you would not want to go. Of course, the table saw is nothing compared to that, but Patrick, Steve, they sell saw stop stickers real cheap. Just add that to your saw. Yeah. There you go. That's an upgrade. Just throw some stickers on it. Grizz says they get relaxed with safety features and let their guard down. Exactly. Just like a lot of things. People let their guard down. They get too relaxed with something. I'm sure I do that with things myself, not realizing I'm doing that, but I always try to be as cautious as I can and as conscious with the tools that I'm working with, knowing and always remembering the damage that those tools can cause. I've met a lot of people that have done a lot of these jobs and have been seriously hurt and have permanent scars. I know a guy who was a logger who has a scar that goes from one corner of his face to the other, and he took a chainsaw right across his face, and he was lucky to be alive after. And like I said, my father, I've known guys that worked with my father that, were gone all of a sudden, and my father explained why. Being crushed under bridges and, buried in concrete and falling off of man lifts and drown, and just a lot of nasty things that you wouldn't want to go through. And I kind of appreciate the fact that he's told me those stories, because it kind of makes me think twice before I do something, where I do let my guard down. But I do tend to move fairly quickly through the tools, but I'm always watching where my hands are. And like one of the things you might have noticed, when I'm working with the table saw, even just working with my hoodie. I took the strings from my hoodie and I tuck them in because I don't want them to get caught on a tool and pull me into the tool and, you know, cut my face off. I'm just always trying to be as cautious as I can. Patrick, that's true. They're nice to use. Yep, absolutely. Steve says, I put the micro jig splitter on mine. It's a good substitute, but it doesn't work on angles or group cuts. Also, the splitter at the back of the insert limits how high you can rise the blade. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you know you do get those limitations. And you can remove those safeties from your tools that do limit you from doing things you're trying to do, but you just have to remember the risk of those safeties that you're removing. And as long as you're paying attention and being careful, you'll be all right. But it's just, you can't get too relaxed and too comfortable with, you know, with that experience. That's just, you know, that's just me. I've certainly hurt myself more than enough, and I'll probably continue to hurt myself in stupid ways and learn from it, and sometimes not learn from it. But human nature. Grizz says, when safety features fail is when the tool bites you. Yeah, it is. I got a scar right here down my finger here, where actually just this year I had a metal grinder bite me right between my fingers, and I still have a scar there. This thumb, I don't know if it's ever going to be normal again, but just a couple months ago I ran this thumb across a piece of sheet metal and it cut right down into the joint. I think it might have cut cartilage or a tendon or something, but it cut pretty deep. And I just wrapped it in tape, and it's the outside it's healed, but it still hurts down in the joint. So I have a feeling I might have cut something. You know, I probably should have gone to the doctor for it, but it was one of those things I was hoping if I wrapped it up, it was going to heal okay. And, you know, maybe over time the little bit of pain that I have now in that joint will go away. But I also learned that when you're trying to pull sheet metal out with a screwdriver or a pair of pliers, don't push towards that piece of sheet metal, because that thing will cut your hand open like it's nothing. And so I won't be doing that again. But, you know, we all learn by making mistakes sometimes. Chris says, I've cut my leg 3 times in my younger years with a skill saw. Dang. All 3 times the guard failed to roll back. Since then I keep my guard pinned and have never cut myself again. Yeah, you definitely learn from experience. And you hope that you'll learn from other people's experiences, but that's not always the case, unfortunately. I've seen my father do a lot of stupid things. I've done my fair share of stupid things. And you realize how stupid they are after you do them. But so I think, alright, so somebody suggested another pattern. Thin maple walnut, cherry walnut, thin maple. So basically that is taking from the last one I just made, taking the walnut and moving it in and moving the thin maple to the outside. I think that would look cool. And that kind of breaks up the 2 lighter colored woods. So I'll try that next. Jim Beer says, drilled through my finger because I was too lazy to move the ladder. Yep, been there, done that too. You know, you're too much in a hurry to try to do something quicker, so you take risks. And I'm really lucky because I've taken some risks, and I think back at some of the risks I've taken. Like when I was in my mid to late 20s, I had a painting business, and I used to take a lot of risks up on 40 and 50 foot ladders, leaning way out, just having my arm and one leg wrapped on a ladder so I could reach as far as I could, so I didn't have to move the ladder as far next time. But just imagine falling 50 feet to the ground and the concrete was below me. You know, stupid little stunts like that. Sometimes you learn by getting injured and healing from it, and sometimes you don't get a chance to learn because it just takes one mistake. Unfortunately, I've known people who've, you know, basically taken that risk and paid the ultimate price for it. So it's, you have to, you know, those experiences you remember. Grace says, I gotta turn the light out for the chickens and then crash. Catch you later, Mike and all. Hey, have a good night, Grace. Yeah, I'm probably gonna be up a little late tonight just because I slept in today and I'm on Christmas vacation, so I'm gonna be probably working out here for a little while. So for anyone who wants to stay up and hang out, I'm probably gonna make another set of coasters or two. But it's nice. Right now, it's like I said, it's about like 50 degrees out. Feels like daytime, except for the fact that it's dark out. And I have all sorts of energy. It's warm out, so it's kind of nice. Like I said, I have time off, so I can stay up tonight and sleep in tomorrow, or I can go to bed and wake up early and spend the day tomorrow. It doesn't really matter. But I'm having fun now, so I'm making a few things. I've been actually every once in a while I've been stepping outside. I've been taking breaks and going out to the front of the garage. I've been throwing salt out on the driveway. I'm trying to melt the ice down because we got probably about an inch and a half thick ice layer on our driveway. So trying to drive up and down our driveway right now is near impossible. I coated it with sand today with the skid steer so we could drive up and down it, but as the ice melts and exposes the ice some more and the sand sinks down into it, I'm afraid of it getting slick again. So I've been going out there and throwing a bunch of salt on it. And I'm hoping that by tomorrow afternoon it'll be mostly dirt, which will make it a lot easier to drive on. So, but I'll be back in just a minute. For anyone who wants to hang out, I'm going to keep making a few things. For me, Eastern Time Zone, it's 12:17 a.m. It is late for me, but you know, I still got plenty of energy. I'm having a blast. I don't get to spend a whole lot of time out here in the workshop, so I'm just going to keep making stuff. And I'll keep the stream going for anyone who wants to hang out and chat. But I'll be back in just a few minutes. And so yeah, I'll see you in a minute. Let's see. So for all you guys on the West Coast, it's what, about 9:20. So what do you guys have up for plans this weekend? You guys have Christmas Eve and Christmas off? Long weekend? Any plans with the family? Let's see. So basically swapping piece of walnut. This will probably not be long enough to make a full set of coasters, but I like to make mix and match sets of coasters. So this will probably make 3 coasters, and I can mix these in with other. If I make another set of 3 coasters, I can mix them in and make a set of 4 coasters. So just kind of mix and match. So we got thin maple, walnut, cherry, walnut, thin maple. This one's kind of split. Piece of cherry. Use that. Use this for the maple. That'll work. See, Patrick says I'm working on a batch of lidded boxes for a customer. Oh, cool. What's their plans for the boxes? CNC the boxes, then sand them on the lathe. Oh, nice. Awesome wood things. Matt says Christmas party on Saturday. That's fun. I'm hosting a live show Sunday. Family Monday and Tuesday. What's the live show about on Sunday? B&B Forge says I'm off till the New Year. Christmas Eve and day are busy for my family. Yeah, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day will pretty much just be here hanging out, relaxing. But Christmas Eve, I'm probably going to do a bunch of workout in the yard. But I enjoy doing that, so I choose to do that for fun. Matt says live show is all things YouTube and a special 3 p.m. Airtime. Oh, cool. I'll have to check that out. I'm gonna cut these up. So I think we got it here. Thin maple, walnut, cherry, walnut, thin maple. I think that's actually going to look pretty cool. So for glue bottles, I found these things are the best. I went to the dollar store and picked up these condiment bottles with these easy little caps. And so far these are the best glue bottles I've found so far for the money. All right. You know, I feel lucky. I met this guy who used to professionally make instruments out of wood. And he had like hundreds of clamps. He was probably about 80 years old. He retired from doing this, and when he stopped making instruments, he sold all of his clamps. And so I went to his house and I bought pretty much all the clamps he had. And he gave me a really good deal on all the clamps that he had in his shop. And so I made him an offer, and I was really happy when he accepted the offer I gave him. And he was happy that I was able to use them. And so a lot of these clamps are pretty old, but they work really well. So that is why I have quite a few clamps now. So there we go. Thin maple, walnut, cherry, walnut, thin maple. I think those are going to look pretty cool. See, awesome wood things. Gotta jump off, folks. Have a good night. Hey, have a good night, Matt. We'll talk to you soon. Amber John, good night. B&B Forge, that will look good. I think those are gonna look cool. That combination of colors would make a great dining room table. I think so. You know, I want to make some more projects with these combination of walnut, cherry, and maple. I really like the different contrasts of colors. And this one really kind of shows that. You have like the dark wood, the really light wood, the dark wood, and then kind of in between with the cherry. So you get the cherry, the walnut, maple, walnut. And I want to make some boxes kind of with that similar style. I think a table would look really cool. And a lot of things I think would look really cool with that pattern. Amber John says, take care everyone. Hey, have a good night. Thanks for stopping in. Steve Carmichael says, are you going to cut the coasters round or square? I'm actually thinking I might make some of them round. I might make a set of round ones and a set of square ones. Or other shape, like a trapezoid. That's cool. I was actually thinking like something like a trapezoid or a diamond shape, something like that, like octagon shape would look really cool. So if I cut these down into squares and then from there kind of cut them into different shapes, I think that would look pretty neat. So, let's see. I think I'm going to make maybe at least one more set. We got a big chunk of maple here. I got to do something with that. Nice piece of cherry right here. So I got maple cherry. Another chunk of walnut here. I could do a bunch of thin strips of each of them and just make kind of like an array of like walnut, cherry, maple, walnut, cherry, maple, kind of a pattern of a bunch of thin strips of each of them. That might look kind of cool. So I might try to do that. Let's see. So the thickness on this is pretty good. Maybe cut a bunch of like 1/4 inch thick slices of these and kind of laminate together some coasters. Of kind of like an array of different colors. Maybe I'll try that. 6 left watching. I'm gonna have to trim this. Actually, I'm gonna trim this real quick. So I'm kind of doing a laminated kind of coaster. So we got, see, walnut, cherry, maple, walnut, cherry, maple, walnut, cherry, maple, walnut, cherry, maple, walnut. So that might look kind of cool. Kind of a strip of a bunch of different types of woods together. Mix it up a bit. Let's see. Grab some of the clamps that I got left here. Make it a little overkill. Some of these clamps might be a little bigger than I need. 1, 2. Probably don't need that. So flip these down. 1, 2, 3. These coasters are going to be made mostly of glue, I think. All right. So there we go. A little bit of kind of a laminated coaster. Walnut, cherry, maple in like a crazy pattern. Amber and John says, I like round coasters. I actually might make some of these into round coasters. I always grab something like random that's round, just kind of use as a template. And then just draw it out and cut it out on the bandsaw. I'm gonna go scrape off some of the glue that I have on my hands. Be back in just a second. This glue doesn't come off as easy as it should, but I got some of it off. So, show you all the things I've made tonight. So we got the one I just made. We got maple, walnut, cherry, maple. Maple, walnut, cherry, walnut, maple. We got walnut, thin maple, cherry, thin maple, walnut. The first one I made, which is walnut, maple, cherry, walnut. And the cutting board I made for my friend, walnut, maple, cherry, walnut. So I will have a lot of planing to do tomorrow once these are dry. So that's pretty much it. So, let's see, I got 1, 2, 3, 4 glue ups for coasters, and 1 for a cutting board. So hopefully out of all this, I'll have at least a few set of coasters and a cutting board. Just as a matter of what, a few hours. So yeah. So I think I am pretty much going to end it here. It is 1 a.m. here now, Eastern time. I'm probably going to head off to bed in a few minutes, but I feel like I got a lot of stuff done. Tomorrow I just have to take the clamps off these once they're dry, plane them down, and then cut them into, you know, whatever shapes and sizes I want for these coasters, pretty much, and then make something nice out of this cutting board. So yeah, that is pretty much it. So I appreciate you guys hanging out this whole time. I've been, I think, live for at least a few hours here, just hanging out in the shop, making a few projects, some stuff that I want to put in the shop to sell, and some gifts that I want to make for a friend. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you guys have any suggestions on other things that you guys would like to see me make, I would be thrilled to hear any suggestions on stuff I can make some out of some of the scrap wood, because I got quite a bit of it. And I have a pretty big storage container full of all sorts of different woods that I can make things out of, so I'm always up to suggestions on more projects. But I am going to take off. I appreciate you guys hanging out, and hopefully I will see you probably on the next one. I am going to take off, and might do another live stream or another video sometime this weekend before Christmas. But if I don't talk to you guys soon, hope you all have a great holiday. Hope you and your families have a great Christmas, and I will talk to you soon.